Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. Very, very excited. There's lots to talk about today. We are going to be talking about the lawfare that we saw under President Biden with a very, very qualified guest. Today, we're talking to, as I mentioned, we're talking about the weaponization of the DOJ. We're talking with Senator Schmitt. Of course, he's a senator, a U.S. senator from the state of Missouri. It's his first term in the U.S. Senate. Of course, he is a part of the Republican Party. He has really been one of the leading Republicans, especially on these issues that apply to the weaponization of the Garland-Biden DOJ. We're now seeing some turnaround. We're seeing some wins in the courtroom setting, but it's not to stop these rogue activist judges. He's especially qualified given the fact that he was the Attorney General of Missouri, and he has a new book out called The Last Line of Defense: How to Beat the Left in Court. You can check it out at Amazon. It was a New York Times bestseller. I can't tell you how hard that is to do as a conservative with a book coming from the conservative light. So again, Last Line of Defense, check it out on Amazon.com, anywhere where you get your books, and listen to this interview here. Well, Senator, thank you for joining the Gains for Girls podcast. Look, I am so excited to be able to talk with you about your new book, The Last Line of Defense: How to Beat the Left in Court. But we need to start by talking about the most important news of the past week, at least to the Swifties across the globe. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are engaged. Obviously, being the senator of the great state of Missouri, of course, this is where the Kansas City Chiefs are. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, I wish you could say, you couldn't necessarily predict it, but it looked like they were marching down this path, right? And so it's official now. And Chiefs games, it's like when she's at the game, it's just like a whole nother energy. And for my daughters, I've got a 17-year-old daughter and a daughter who just turned 15, especially my 15-year-old. It got her watching a few more games the last couple years, so that was kind of fun. So,
yeah, no doubt about that. Admittedly, I am not a Swiftie, but I will say it is kind of cool coming from a football family myself to see the different audience or demographic that Taylor Swift has brought to football. And I think it's a good day anytime when you have this woman who has a history of being pretty liberal in her views, whatever it is, to now be engaged to on the path to marriage to a masculine man. I'm excited about
That's right.
So anyways, of course, I've been following you, everything that you've done since your time in the U.S. Senate, and even before that, actually. Before we get into your book, there's one thing I wanted you to kind of walk us through. This has been something that I have now, in the position that I am, really had to understand what's going on with the recent news surrounding these different redistricting battles that are happening around the country. Have Democrats not gerrymandered for decades now?
They have. In fact, I think Republicans are starting to wake up and fight back, and we can talk about the book, but really kind of the ethos of the book, Last Line of Defense: How We Beat the Left in Court, is I think Republicans have to understand that there's sort of the left has been operating on it in a different mode than we have for a long time. And I think conservatives need to wake up and fight back in those arenas. And one of those is on the congressional redistricting maps. The reason why this is a win for Republicans, if we choose to fight here, is that we have way more to gain if you look at the red states that could redistrict and pick up more seats in Congress, because the Democrats have already done all this. That's why they're kind of realizing now, like take Illinois to Missouri's east. You can't gerrymander a state more than Illinois has gerrymandered their state. So it's kind of interesting when the Texas Democrats were fleeing somewhere, they fled to Illinois to protest, but of course that state is perhaps the worst example. So yeah, I think we need to do it. Missouri, I think, is about ready to move forward on that to pick up an additional seat. I think Indiana's talking about it. Texas already did it. Florida could be in the mix. So if you think of like the SEC states, if they decide that they're going to engage in this game that the Democrats started a long time ago, Republicans have a lot to gain.
That's right. Yeah, it's been interesting for me. Again, I think relatively new to the political sphere and understanding it in the depth that I do now, to see where you have states like California or Massachusetts, which have like anywhere from 30-45% Republican base in the state, yet hardly any representation in Congress.
Yeah, in many instances, really none. Like there are some states that have 40+% Republicans, and they have zero Republican representation in Congress. And I'm not just talking about some states just have one congressman, right? I'm not talking about those states. I'm talking about other states. So Democrats have gotten as much juice out of this as they can. I don't think they can squeeze any more. They might be able to find one here or there, but California is going to try to upend their commission, which they, kind of created to rig the system a little bit to the left years ago. Now that's not good enough. But if they want to kind of engage in this fight, if Republicans are willing to fight back, we have a lot more to gain. And by the way, the other thing that's worth noting, right now we still count, or in the last census at least, count illegal immigrants in the census, because you don't have to be right now a citizen to be counted in the census. That ought to change too, and that could change if we play that game, which we could under the law. California would lose a dozen seats, so there's a lot on the line.
Man, it's crazy, and I think all of this again has really come to light, especially since President Trump has been back in the Oval Office. But as we've alluded to, of course, you have a new book out, again, titled The Last Line of Defense, How to Beat the Left in Court. We saw the scope of judicial weaponization of the Biden and Garland DOJ. Tell us a little bit about your book and what inspired you to write it.
Yeah, so people can check it out right now on Amazon. Last Line of Defense, How to Beat the Left in Court. It just was named to the New York Times bestseller list, which for a conservative book is a pretty big deal. So I think
that is.
We're proud of that. But really, it's kind of a field manual for what it was like when I was Attorney General of Missouri to be on the front lines against the left-wing lawfare machine, right? So basically, my first, before I became a senator, I was AG in Missouri. The first couple of years, we spent our time taking on violent crime, prosecuting the bad guys, that kind of stuff. When Biden came in, though, everything sort of changed, right? This was a time of, you still had lockdowns, and you had mask mandates, and you had vaccine mandates, you had censorship, you had ESG, you had DEI struggle sessions. I mean, the left was coming. And so we stood up in the arena, we fought back. We took the student loan debt forgiveness case all the way to the Supreme Court, we won. We took the vaccine mandate that was Missouri, took that to the Supreme Court, we won. We filed the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit that exposed this vast censorship enterprise that the Biden administration started on day 3. We took Fauci's deposition. We took Elvis Chan's deposition, who was the FBI agent pre-bunking the Hunter Biden laptop story. So there's a lot of great stories in here that I think your audience will find interesting, especially even on the local level. When you had, forcing 5-year-olds to wear masks all day long, even though there was no evidence to support any of this stuff, these adults should have known better. We stood up. We sued 50 plus school districts in Missouri. We fought back and we won. So really, the lesson here is if conservatives have the courage to fight back like you did, right? If we do it, we can win. And not just in court, but in the court of public opinion. I think there's a reason why we're winning a lot of these cultural fights now. Democrats are on the wrong side of these 80-20 issues all the time. Think of crime, think of men playing in women's sports, think of illegal immigration. So, but if we just stand back and let them kind of run roughshod, we'll lose. But if we stand up and fight back, we win. That's
it. Missouri really has been fantastic. Of course, your time as Attorney General, even your successor, Andrew Bailey. I feel like for when Biden was serving as president, there was a new lawsuit, I felt like, every day coming from Missouri. I know big wins surrounding, I believe it was Pornhub, of course, China, different involvement there.
Yeah, we sued communist China when I was into. We sued communist China for unleashing the COVID pandemic on the world. We have a $24 billion judgment. We talk about that in the book. What was that like? And really, in fact, in the Fauci deposition, there's a lot of nuggets to pull, but he was fascinated by China's lockdown strategy. He wanted to emulate it and undermine President Trump. Of course, he secretly was funding through the EcoHealth Alliance, the Wuhan lab there in China. So there's a lot of stuff that I think the real risk, Riley, is that we're on the other side of the fever dream right now, and all these great wins and successes we're having with President Trump. That's very important, and thank God for all that. But we shouldn't lose sight of how close we came to losing it all, and really what they were willing to do when they had that kind of power during COVID or all this other nonsense.
Yeah, it's amazing to look back. I was a college student during the time of COVID, and to now, again, we're in 2025, so 3-4 years post-COVID, to look back and really see how so many strong-minded people, or at least people who would call themselves strong-minded, really fell victim to the tactics that were implemented at the institutional level, of course, within our federal government during COVID. So praise God for you guys shedding light on this and really, again, being on the front lines of pushing back. Do you think now conservatives, obviously Trump is very different than any other Republican president, at least in modern history. Do you think that conservatives have learned to use the courts as aggressively as the left has, again, for decades? Or are more lawsuits even the answer we should be seeking? What's kind of the solution here?
Yeah, I think Republicans played nice for too long on this stuff and just sort of set and kind of ceded way too much territory. And the courts are included, and it's really one of the reasons why I wrote the book, Last Line of Defense: How to Beat the Left in Court. You can get right now online, but I think we're learning. I think this is a playbook because this won't be the last time, Riley. It just won't be. We like to think we'll be in this kind of situation forever. That's historically not how it happens. I think the left also manufactures or uses quote unquote emergencies to gather power in ways that were sort of unimaginable. I like to say that I don't think power necessarily corrupts, but I do think it reveals. And it revealed a lot about what people, even like the local bureaucrat, public health official, or the superintendent that was pushing this radical ideology because they were, these struggle sessions. I mean, we opened up a parent portal. A lot of this involves kids and parents. And to this day, I live in the St. Louis area, when I go to the grocery store, it's mostly moms will come up to me and say, thanks for fighting for our kids. Actually, I had an intern in Washington come up and say, you sued my school over masks. And I was like, I don't know where this is going. And she's like, thank you. Oh my God, it was totally crazy. So I think that what they were willing to do, we opened up a parent portal where people were, sending in messages of what was happening. Kids who didn't want to wear masks were forced to eat lunch by themselves on a stage in the middle of a gym. Kids were being forced to, this is in Missouri now, right? Like this wasn't like in New York City. Kids being forced to engage in what were called privilege walks, where like, okay, if you're white, take a step forward. If your parents are married, take a step forward. If they have a job, take a step forward. And then open your eyes. And then, of course, the room is totally divided. Kids are, played off of one another. I mean, it's just sick what was going on. And so I think there's still a tendency, the left, they want to do it. They're in retreat. We got to make sure they don't just rename these things. But I think these big cultural fights are often played out in courtrooms. And we just have to engage. But the book's not really written for lawyers, although I hope lawyers read it. It's really for like a normal audience who's like, what was it like to take Fauci's deposition? Or what was the craziest thing that you saw in some of these fights? And that's really what the book is about.
It's interesting you say that it's moms oftentimes who are approaching you. And again, I think it shows you the war on children specifically. We've seen lots of wins, certainly over the past few months around the Supreme Court, whether it's religious freedom, whether it's free speech, whether it's parental rights. I know the Supreme Court, hopefully this fall, will hear oral arguments surrounding a Title IX case. So hopefully the wins keep coming. Last thing for you, what are some other legislative priorities for you all in the Senate upon y'all's soon return?
Getting back. Well, I handled the rescissions package before we left. And I think that was a big statement to say, you know what? We're going to claw back money that should have never gone to USAID for Guatemalan sex changes and DEI in Burma and Sesame Street in Iraq, all this crazy stuff that people are like, what's going on over there?
So being in the gallery at the joint address to Congress when President Trump was mentioning all of the crazy things that our taxpayer dollars were going to, and the silence in the room from people who, again, even people a part of these legislative bodies who had no idea this is where our money was going.
Right. Well, what happens is, unfortunately, money is appropriated, and there's not a line item for that stuff. But then you get these crazy bureaucrats and agencies like USAID. That's where they go spend it on. It's nuts. So we got to get better control of that. I think we'll see more of those. Hopefully, we've got the largest tax cut in American history. We got done before we left. I think when we get back, it'll be sort of appropriations bills. We'll do defense authorization, but we're going to try to continue to get more President Trump's nominees put forth and approved in the Senate. The Democrats are engaged in just record level, unprecedented obstruction. I mean, they're stuck right now, Riley. They don't have a message. They don't have a messenger. Their party's still captured by the radical left. They're on the wrong side of these 80-20 issues. It's just, and all they can do is compete to be the chief resistor to President Trump. But the truth is, President Trump won the popular vote. He won those battleground states because he's talking about common sense issues. So when, when he does what he does in Washington, D.C., and you see crime drop dramatically, people support that. You know, when he sealed the border and he's engaged in these deportations, people support that. So what do the Democrats do? They object to Trump. They go down to El Salvador and have margaritas with a MS-13 gang member who beats his wife. I mean, they are in a weird, rough spot. I don't think they've hit rock bottom yet. So I think we got to be pedal to the metal and continue to be aggressive. And again, one of the reasons I wrote the book, Last Line of Defense, is because I just think we have to have courage and understand that what people want more than anything is authentic leadership, and we need to keep going.
That's it. Yeah, it's a good point. These Democrats, they think they're opposing Trump, but really what they're doing is opposing the American people.
Yep.
One more time, where can people get your book, The Last Line of Defense?
Yeah, they can go to Amazon right now, anywhere books are sold, Barnes & Noble, it's everywhere. But Amazon, for most people, is just the easiest way to do it. But wherever you buy books online or actually in stores, you can get the book. I think people enjoy it. It's written in a way that I think kind of looks back at those big wins, but also gives a playbook moving forward of how conservatives can fight and win.
Fantastic. Well, that's what we need. So we appreciate you. Thank you for everything. Good luck as you guys, again, make your return pretty soon and continue to accomplish the America First agenda. Very appreciative of you.
Thanks. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Gains for Girls podcast. Again, make sure you follow us on youtube.com/OutKick. That's where you can like, comment, subscribe, never miss an episode, share these episodes far and wide. It helps tremendously when you do. And I want you guys to go to amazon.com or anywhere where you get your books and check out The Last Line of Defense, How to Beat the Left in Court by Senator Eric Schmitt of Missouri. Fantastic. The legislative wins that we have seen. As you heard him say, it's to speak to how we got to the place that we did, especially under the Biden administration. But also it's a playbook for what to expect in the future and how we as conservatives, really not even to make this partisan, how we as people with common sense, especially on the cultural issues, can continue to see the wins that we have seen over the past 8-9 months at this point. Appreciate you guys, and we will see you again next week.